Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Laura.
Now, before we dive in today, I want to be real with you. We had a tiny bit of technical difficulty. When your AirPods decide that they're your microphone, bummer. So I'm re-recording part of this for you. I just didn't want to put out something that wasn't the same quality that I really hope you expect from me, because it's what we do here at Crime Clueless. We really put the time and effort in each week to make sure that what you're listening to is top tier. And since I am re-recording this, I wanted to have a quick ask. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, please take a moment. It is fast, free, easy, and it really helps our podcast. Please take a moment and give us a rating for Crime Clueless. You can scroll down on Apple Podcasts at the bottom. You'll see those 5 beautiful stars. Give us the rating. If you feel so inclined, give us a review. On Spotify, you can just leave a rating, same with Audible, but it really helps the podcast. And I promise you, we see every single one of them, and it means the world to us. Now, we will jump into our case, and if it sounds just a tiny bit different, it's because we're recording at 2 different times, and I wanted you to know why. This story that I have for you today is a disappearance that feels so close to answers. It feels like at every turn, the smallest thing could have made all the difference in this case. On the morning of January 24th, 2006, Jennifer Kesse vanished. She didn't leave a note. She didn't pack a bag. She didn't tell anyone that she had decided to go anywhere. She simply disappeared. Her condo was locked. Her bed was made. Her clothes were laid out for work. Within hours, the people who knew her best were asking these same questions. The questions that we're still asking almost 20 years later. How does a responsible, cautious, routine driven woman vanish in broad daylight? How does someone take a person without leaving a trace? No screams, no witnesses, no physical struggle? And who is the person caught on camera driving her car, whose face we've never been able to see? Not us, not the FBI, not NASA. Everyone who's had a chance, no one's been able to see. This is the disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. Now, what makes Jennifer's case so unsettling isn't just that she disappeared, it's how clearly it happened. It's how cleanly it happened. There was no blood, no broken glass, no abandoned purse on the sidewalk, just silence. When a case is this quiet, it usually means one of two things. Someone was either incredibly lucky or someone knew exactly what they were doing. Jennifer Kesse was 24 years old when she disappeared. And by every measurable standard, she was doing well in life. She was close with her family, especially her parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse. Jennifer talked to them a lot daily. That was the norm. The calls, the texts, they were expected on both sides. She was independent, yes. She was also organized, meticulous. Friends described her as responsible and structured, the kind of person who planned ahead and followed routines. She didn't take unnecessary risks. She had attended the University of Central Florida in Orlando and was in Alpha Delta Pi sorority. She pursued a degree in finance and graduated in 2003. Jennifer then worked as a financial manager at a timeshare company in OC, Florida. It was a serious job, one that required reliability and focus, traits that Jennifer had in abundance. In fact, she was the youngest employee in the company to be promoted to management. She had recently, about 2 to 3 months prior, purchased a condo in Orlando at Mosaic at Millennia. This wasn't a spontaneous decision, it was a milestone. She was proud of it. This was her space, her future. She also, at the time, had a long distance boyfriend whose name was Rob Allen. He lived in Fort Lauderdale. They had been together for over a year. And, like many long distance relationships, there's had its ups and downs. Affection mixed sometimes with frustration, usually for these two, related to the distance, and they just wanted to live closer to each other. Just days before she vanished, Jennifer and Rob had been on vacation together in St. Croix. By most accounts, the trip was good. Jennifer sounded happy when she spoke to her mother afterward. Relaxed, glowing, excited though to get back to work, excited to get back to her routine. They had arrived in Florida on January 22nd, and she spent that night with her boyfriend at his Fort Lauderdale apartment. It was closer to the airport they arrived at, and who doesn't want just one more night? The next morning, she went straight from his place to work, which I imagine was an early morning because Fort Lauderdale is about 3 hours away from where she lived. While they had been on their trip, Jennifer's brother Logan, along with two of his friends, Matt and Travis, had stayed at her condo. This was on the condition that they clean up before she got home. After work on the 23rd, Jennifer made a few calls on her way home. She spoke to her dad, her brother, and a couple of friends, sharing stories from their trip, just catching up. While speaking with her brother, he let her know that one of his friends had left his work phone at the condo. The plan was that she would mail it to him the next morning from her work. Later that night, around 10 p.m., she talked to Rob on the phone. They really were struggling with the dynamics of a long distance relationship. Both, however, were happy where they were living. They both enjoyed their jobs, their homes. They both had hoped that the other would move closer, but it hadn't materialized yet. It was a minor argument, nothing explosive, nothing unusual, just the two of them wanting to be together more and the 3 hour distance getting to them. While they were on the phone, there was a knock at Jennifer's door. She stayed on the phone and looked out. It was an upstairs neighbor. She didn't answer the door, and shortly after this, they ended their call. That phone call, around 10 p.m., would be the last confirmed contact anyone ever had with Jennifer Kesse.
That's awful. That's an awful way to end it too, that they were kind of arguing.
I know, I'm glad it wasn't a bigger, more stressful
Yeah,
argument.
that's good at least. Um,
It seems like it was, we're so enjoying this relationship and wish that we could spend more time together. So at least there's that. It seems likely after that phone call that Jennifer unpacked from her trip, laid out her clothes for the next day, which was something she routinely did. Now, Jennifer loved her condo, but she didn't always feel safe there. The mosaic at Melania was still under construction in early 2006. It had recently moved from an apartment complex to one that consisted of individual condos that people could purchase now. A lot of the units were vacant, with construction workers coming and going constantly. Jennifer had mentioned to both friends and family that she felt uncomfortable around some of the men that were working and living there. She said they stared at her or they catcalled her and that she felt watched a lot of the time. Her family says that it wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition. She's observing this over and over and replaying it back. Jennifer was always cautious by nature, so when she felt uneasy, she definitely paid attention to it. She made changes to her routine. She made sure her doors were always locked. She was looking through the peephole if someone came. She was good about checking her surroundings, but just because she felt uneasy, she wasn't willing to move. This was her home, her space, her condo. She was proud to have been able to purchase it. And there's just that in hindsight feeling, I guess.
Yeah, that's really hard because
Hmm.
if you are constantly feeling uneasy, that's so hard. I don't know.
Because what can you
You
do?
don't,
You've locked the doors,
yeah,
you pay attention, but I guess you also hope the construction ends soon,
I know. I think I would, if I felt that uneasy, I feel like I would look for somewhere else to live, but I don't know. It's so hard if it's a good place for your work and you love it there.
right?
You like the layout, you like the other people there. Was it only like the construction workers or did you make it so it wasn't like any other residents or anything like that?
The upstairs neighbor coming to the door, I don't think that was related in any way. It was just Rob relaying this final conversation that he had had over and over.
Mhm.
And it's part of what happened that night.
Yeah,
I do find it odd that
or
they came to
later.
her door at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we ever find out why.
Yeah.
The next day was a Tuesday, January 24th, 2006. The routine was that Jennifer always called Rob on her way to work, and if she didn't call, she would text. They always talked in the morning before they started with their busy days. That call or text never came. Rob tried to call Jennifer between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. When he called, it went straight to voicemail. Rob assumed she was distracted. Jennifer did have an important meeting that morning at work. So he maybe thought that she went into work early and didn't have a chance to call. Maybe she was reviewing stuff on her way, talking to coworkers, whatever the case may be. She was, though, expected at work and was needed for this meeting, but she never arrived. At first, coworkers, like people always do, assumed that something had come up. They know that Jennifer is reliable. They know she shows up. They know this meeting was important to her. But, sometimes things happen. Maybe a flat tire, who knows? By mid morning, around 11 a.m., they still hadn't heard from Jennifer, and concern set in for her employers. They tried calling, it went straight to voicemail. After this, they called her parents, which I think is pretty cool. A lot of other cases we've talked about, I feel like they always tried to call the person, but the person is an adult. If they don't answer and they don't come in, they're not necessarily reaching out to family members, friends. A lot of times they let it go to a second day, a third day. The whole investigation, the case, the reporting of someone missing ends up kicking off later than it should.
Yeah, and maybe she had them listed as her emergency contact, and since she was so needed that day, they were trying to figure out where she was.
Her work had seen her the day before. She had been to work on Monday. She got home from her trip on Sunday. It might have been different if this had happened the day after she got home and
Mhm.
hadn't shown up. They could have thought maybe her flight got canceled. She can't make calls from St. Croix, something to
Yeah.
that effect. But she had been at work on Monday and now we're on Tuesday.
Yeah, so if that's not her behavior, she normally is very reliable. I could see them being like, "Where are you? We need you here," and reaching out to emergency contacts.
Hmm.
That's good.
Jennifer's parents, when they got that call, instantly knew something was wrong. They got off the phone. They immediately called Jennifer. It goes straight to voicemail. That alone was really alarming. They've said in interviews that her phone was never off. It would be on silent, sure, but never straight to voicemail. She never turned it off, which I think is like a lot of us, right? We never turn it off.
Yeah.
Joyce, Jennifer's mom, would later say that that moment, that unanswered phone call, is when she knew something terrible had happened. Next, they called Rob. who explained that he hadn't heard from her either. He explained that he had tried calling her that morning, straight to voicemail. Her parents reached out to the property manager for Jennifer's condo. Amazingly, he went and checked. She had an assigned spot for her car, which was a white 2004 Chevy Malibu, and it wasn't in her assigned spot. So he called her parents back, told them that her car was gone. So they're thinking, okay, maybe it was a car accident on her way to work. They start calling the hospitals in the area. No luck. Her parents, Drew and Joyce, drove immediately from Bradentown, which is just a little bit south of Tampa, to Orlando. Her brother and also his friend Travis, which is one of the ones that had stayed and whose work phone it was, also went to help. And Rob made the drive from Fort Lauderdale to her condo. They all got there a couple hours later. Jennifer had given her parents a spare key to her condo. This wasn't unusual. They were close, and Jennifer was practical, safety minded. She wanted her parents to have access in case of an emergency or while she was out of town if something needed taken care of.
Yeah, for sure.
When they arrived at Jennifer's condo, everything looked normal, too normal. The front door was locked and it had to be locked with a key. All the lights were off. They noticed also that her car was gone, like the manager had described. They found a damp towel in the laundry. The shower floor was wet. So they're like, okay, we can tell she got up and got ready for work. It looked like someone had maybe paused her life mid motion. Her pajamas were on the floor in the bathroom. There was an outfit laid out on her bed. They say that she might have had multiple outfits laid out, trying to decide which one she wanted to wear that day. That was the one that didn't get picked. She had a pair of snakeskin heels that were her absolute favorite. They were missing. So, like, okay, she wore those to work. Her phone was gone. The work phone from Travis, her brother's friend, was gone. She was on her way. She was leaving on her way to work. They didn't see her work briefcase, her purse, her keys. Usually, Jennifer carried mace on her keychain, but that was found on the counter. Her
Hmm.
father had given her and her friends mace years before, and she always had it with her. But they theorized that she had taken it off before her trip because you can't carry
Oh,
that on the plane, and it
yeah.
just hadn't got put back on yet.
That's unfortunate. That's awful to
Mm,
think that.
I know that small detail really stuck out to me. Like,
Yeah.
if only that had gone back on the night before.
Yeah.
By everything they could see in her condo, they assumed she'd left for work for the day, but something happened in between her leaving and her getting to work. Her parents called police next. They were given one of the lines that I hate the most. Jennifer is an adult and she could have left on her own free will. Her parents pushed back immediately. They knew Jennifer. They could tell this isn't what happened. If she had just decided to disappear, she probably would have taken more of her clothes, maybe a bag, her mace. She wouldn't just be leaving to go to work. She would pack and take it with her. Her family and friends weren't about to wait around for someone to decide to act, though. By 5 p.m. that evening, they were passing out flyers close to her condo and talking to anyone they could. Thankfully, officers did end up responding the same day that Jennifer was reported missing. Jennifer had no history of disappearing, no mental health concerns, no financial distress, no reason that anybody could come up with to cut contact with everything in her life all at once. Those details elevated the situation. Police walked through the condo with her parents present. They observed the same unsettling details that the Kesses had: the clothes laid out on the bed, signs that she had showered to get out the door in the morning. Also, they noted that nothing appeared ransacked. It didn't appear that there was any form of forced entry. Nothing appeared missing. And that's when investigators were faced with an early uncomfortable realization. Jennifer didn't vanish from inside her home. Something happened after she locked that door and walked out.
Yeah.
By the end of the first day, officers were canvassing the area around the mosaic. They spoke with neighbors, they looked for witnesses, they checked dumpsters, common areas, stairwells. They searched nearby woods, retention ponds, and importantly, they also began documenting Jennifer's routines, where she parked, what time she usually left, who might have seen her, who had access to the building, all those things. So even though their first line, she's an adult, she can leave if she wants, it doesn't sound like they went with that for more than an hour or maybe 3. It was pretty quick. They're realizing this isn't just somebody who walked away.
Yeah, that's good. 'Cause I think we see that way too much and things
Agreed.
get put off for way too long. So I'm glad that they started looking at this right away.
Me too. And as always, I would rather have them over investigate than under investigate.
Yes, for sure.
2 days later, Jennifer's car was discovered on January 26th, just 1 mile away from her condo, parked at another apartment complex called the Huntington on the Green. The car was parked neatly, no broken windows, no damage to her vehicle. All the things, Jennifer's purse, briefcase, the things they noticed that she would have taken with her to work, were discovered in the trunk of her car. Specifically, in the trunk, they found her purse, her briefcase, and other items, including flip flops, a car charger, her mail key, an exercise ball. Some of the things, maybe, that she just had in her car. But the thing that stands out is that Jennifer would not normally put her purse and briefcase in the trunk. You would
I don't
put
think
them on the
anybody
seat
does.
next to you. No,
Yeah.
you might throw the things that you didn't mean to leave in there, but you're not going to throw your mail key in the trunk of your car.
Yeah. And you might put your briefcase in the back, but not your purse because you
Right.
would need your purse. I don't know if you had to stop
You got pulled
or
over, you need to
you
pull
got
out
pulled
your
over.
ID.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a DVD player that Rob had given to Jennifer, and she had like buckled it into the back seat, I'm sure, so it wasn't sliding around or getting damaged or hurt in that 3 hour drive from where he lives to where she lives. That was still in there. That, along with her purse specifically being in the trunk, led investigators to realize that robbery was not the motive here. Now, I saw some reporting that said the seat in front was moved all the way back, but I saw other reporting that contradicted that. I'm not sure on that detail, but they were pretty certain that at this point, we don't have a missing person anymore. We have a criminal abduction. Thankfully, once the car was located, it was treated as a crime scene and processed. Detectives tested for fingerprints, and they did find one latent print. They photographed the interior, they cataloged everything inside. A small fiber was found that eventually would prove to have DNA on it. They brought in bloodhounds, specifically one named Bo. He was able to track the scent in the driver's front seat directly to the rear stairwell by Jennifer's condo. The scent
Cool.
continued. Yeah. So to me, that sounds like it happened going down the stairs before she even got in her car.
Yeah.
The scent continued to a nearby pond where the scent was lost. Search teams expanded their radius going off of this information. They thoroughly searched these areas for any clues. Nothing turned up. Security cameras did exist. There was one at Huntington on the Green that captured footage of the person who parked Jennifer's car. This footage would become one of the most infamous elements of the case. The video shows a person driving the Malibu into the lot. They park, they sit for about 30 seconds, they exit the vehicle, they walk away. And in every single frame, their face is obscured by a fence post, by a shadow, by the camera angle, glare from sunlight, by sheer bad luck. It is almost statistically impossible, and yet there it is. Law enforcement sent the footage to the FBI. They sent it to NASA, to experts in image enhancement. No one could identify the person. Not only
That's
that,
too bad.
right? You have footage, you can see somebody. And I will send you the footage and we will post a link to it. It's infuriating.
Yeah, that
They
is to have the video and every time you can see their face, you can't see it. That is
Mhm.
terrible.
It's one of those teeny tiny things that is so big, right? Law enforcement, FBI, NASA, no one could make out even the gender of the person. They couldn't see any distinguishing features. They couldn't tell their race with certainty. And this wasn't just frustrating, it was devastating because whoever that person is, they know what happened to Jennifer. Now, taking everything that we've talked about so far together, investigators drew several early conclusions. They say that Jennifer left her condo intending to go to work. They believe she had her phone with her. They do not believe that she voluntarily gave up her purse or briefcase. They believe that she was headed to work. She wasn't changing this routine up. And they believe that someone else likely rearranged the scene involving her car. One thing that I would like to know is what time the car was parked there, because we know about when Jennifer leaves for work based on when her meeting was, her time to get there, everything like that. I want to know how long it was because the footage doesn't show them moving things to the trunk. So that was already in there. The footage doesn't show anything resembling Jennifer. All of that had to happen before it was parked. I haven't seen that detail released. What we do know is that their working theory was whatever happened to Jennifer happened very quickly, likely between the moment she locked her condo door and the moment she got to her car. Once Jennifer's car was found at Huntington on the Green, and they didn't find Jennifer, but they did find most of her items, they never found her phone. The Orlando
It's
Police
interesting it wasn't
Department.
in her purse or anything.
Mm-mm. And I think for it to have gone straight to voicemail every time someone called, that wouldn't have happened if her phone had been in her purse that they put in the trunk. So they
Yeah.
had to have taken her phone, turned it off, and then
Destroyed it, do you think?
eventually, yes, because they
Yeah.
did try to ping where the phone's last known location was the last time that it was on. In some reporting, it said that the last time that it had pinged was at 10:47 p.m. the night before. So I'm not sure if that's the last time she opened it and was looking at it. I mean, 2006, we don't have iPhones. So you're mostly using it for calling and texting and not everything else in your life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that could have been the last time she sent a text or got a text, whatever the case may be. They said that the cell tower that was closest to her house was down. So it was pinging off of further away cell towers, which means that they didn't have the best location access based on that aspect.
It seems like she would have had it in her pocket. Like if she had unplugged it to go to work, probably threw it in her pocket. It seems like that wouldn't have been number one priority as they were abducting her
Mhm.
to turn off her phone. That's kind of odd to me.
As weird. I could see her phone being in her purse. They're putting her purse in the trunk and taking the phone out of it, going through to see
Maybe,
what's in there, or
maybe.
in her hand, maybe if she's about to make a call, like to Rob,
Yeah.
and they take it right then.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not sure.
interesting.
Yeah. Without any information from surveillance that they could really use, investigators did the next logical thing. They talked to everybody they possibly could. So let's walk through who they interviewed, not in a list or an order, but in a way that makes sense of what the police were trying to figure out at each turn. Almost immediately, detectives sat down with the people in Jennifer's inner circle. So they needed to know, did she have plans with anyone? She mentioned any kind of fear or threat. And I'm sure they talked about the workers at her condo in that line of questioning. They asked if anyone was upset with her or had anything unusual happened in the weeks before she disappeared. They talked to Jennifer's parents, her brother, her boyfriend, Rob. Rob was quickly cleared. He didn't live in town. He had a solid alibi. They couldn't find a motive or an opportunity or anything that would place him there. no real reason. Investigators also talked to close friends about Jennifer's routines, her relationships, any arguments with Rob. They're testing all these different people almost against each other. And not because an argument equals any kind of guilt. Detectives were just trying to find every detail they could to build out this timeline. They interviewed Jennifer's brother's friends that had been staying at her condo while she was out of town, specifically about the phone he left there that she was supposed to mail back. It was a small detail, but detectives trying to map out every person who'd been in or around the apartment. I did see that they didn't really collect forensics from her apartment because her family had come in to see if they could find her before police really got involved. Her boyfriend, the people had been staying there. They felt like there was too much contamination. In hindsight, you really could divide all of that out, not saying that it would give them clues, but if there was DNA there that wasn't anybody else's, that they knew. If it was only her family,
Did they find the friend's phone or no?
not to my knowledge.
Okay, that's
So
weird.
I know I was trying to think if it were me, would it be in my briefcase? Because it's not my phone. I don't need it in my purse. I'm just going to mail it when I get to work. Or would it be in my purse because it's a phone and that's where phones go?
Yeah, she was gonna mail it from work. She wasn't gonna stop somewhere on her way.
They had like a mail collection
Oh,
at
okay.
work, which is interesting. The last time we had to send something like a phone, Brandon took it to work to mail it because they had the right kind of pickup, which I couldn't use
Interesting.
at the FedEx next to us. It wasn't like the battery wasn't approved. And I don't know if that's the same, but there were only maybe 4 places in the area that I could take it to, and none of them were closer than 30 minutes away.
Interesting.
I don't remember that happening before, but it
Yeah.
was just in November, so it's recent and it reminded
Yeah.
me of this.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Mhm.
That is interesting they didn't find that, and maybe that says they did look for phones and they got rid of any of the ones that they found if they thought maybe it was her work phone.
Absolutely. I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Personal phone, work phone. So probably didn't make a difference if it was in her purse or briefcase. They
Yeah.
probably crapped it. Next, speaking of workplace, police did interview everyone that she worked with. They wanted to know if anyone was jealous or angry or obsessed, anything with her being promoted as young as she was, or any conflicts in the workplace. They wanted to know if anyone had seen a suspicious interaction, maybe a client or a different company they work with that she'd interacted with. It really does seem like they were going down every single path because from friends, family, boyfriend, so far, we just don't have any leads.
Yeah.
No one that has conflict with her that they can track down. A manager at work reportedly had unreciprocated feelings for Jennifer, and they questioned this manager at length, but that lead went nowhere. He was ruled out. He had no connection to her disappearance. Another coworker who was late to work the morning she vanished was interviewed more in depth. Detectives found that he was late because he got a speeding ticket from the week before and had to go deal with that morning. We're slowly marking people off of our list here. Investigators went deep on the construction workers on the property. It became one of the most talked about groups in the case, both in the media and in private investigation circles. We talked about how the building she lived in was under renovation in several unfinished units. And a lot of the workers were living in these unfinished units, not just working on them. Several had unrestricted access to the building. They were doing jobs like flooring, electrical, drywall. Jennifer had expressed discomfort to friends and family about her interactions with them long before anything happened. Detectives questioned workers who were on site the night before, workers who had access to units near Jennifer's, people who had been seen in and out of the buildings around the time she vanished. The problem was that many were undocumented or moved on quickly after whatever part of construction they were working on wrapped up. It made it really hard to locate a lot of the people who had been working on these different units. Police tried, but a good number of them could not be traced down later, which didn't prove anything, but it did slow down the investigation because it meant potential witnesses or suspects were not around to talk to, as well as taking time away that they could spend elsewhere as police are trying to track them down. At the end, they didn't find evidence that they shared or could use to move the case further, tying any of them directly to Jennifer. But again, there were so many they didn't talk to that it's hard to know. Detectives talked to residents, neighbors, anyone living in or around the mosaic, even living there temporarily. Detectives canvassed neighbors asking if they saw anything unusual. Did they hear anything late night or early morning? Did you see anyone else leaving the complex? In Jennifer's case, this returned almost no actionable tips. There were no confirmed sightings of her walking to her car, no struggles reported, no one heard a scream. No one said that they saw unfamiliar vehicles parked there at the time. It's really amazing that nobody saw anything that they could tell investigators.
Yeah, and it's really weird too that they were driving her car and the smell was traced to her stairwell. So where did they come from? And where did they go? If they swam across the pond and were gone,
You
doesn't
don't
make
do
any
that in
sense.
Florida. All the places that we've stayed, they have these giant ponds and they're surrounded by signs that are pretty intense about the warnings for snakes and the other wildlife that could live in the pond.
Yeah.
Alligators,
Yeah.
we've seen them in ponds at,
Yeah.
places that aren't even on swamp. Like you wouldn't think that they would live right there, but they do.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have a hard time believing that you'd go swimming through a pond
Yeah. I found that really odd too. And that they just leave her car there.
and walk
Like,
away.
it's just really bizarre.
And without knowing what investigators know, it sounds like somebody who was working there or living there, because then you have no strange vehicles or anything like that on the property,
Yeah.
either transporting her somewhere, meeting up with somebody outside of there, parking her car close enough distance where they could walk back,
Yeah.
short distance. A mile's not that long. It was
No.
technically 1.2 miles, pretty close.
Yeah, they definitely could have walked back. And it seems like if they had walked back, they would have picked up the scent going a different way or picked it up again somewhere at the apartment complex, right?
Yeah, that's true. You would think in the building, yeah, if they'd been in or out, you would think that, oh, their bloodhounds
Interesting.
would have picked that up.
Yeah.
Because on the flip side, the pond could be a place close by that they had walked before. But you're right. If they're not picking it up anywhere else, where did they come from?
Where did they go? It was just
Mm,
really weird. Maybe they did
yes.
go swimming in the pond and they weren't from Florida, didn't know, and that was the end of them. We just don't know. I don't know.
Maybe. I don't
That's
know.
why they can't find them.
That
They thought
could
they'd
be.
swim away in the pond. That was
Got
the end.
eaten. Oh,
Eaten
make me
by
gross.
eaten by
Yeah.
something. I don't know.
I don't, yeah.
Eaten by an alligator or something.
Because freshwater, and
Yeah,
it's Orlando.
they
Yeah,
live in the ponds
and the canals
and
and
the
everywhere.
canals and everywhere.
Disney World.
Disney World.
Officers also questioned a landscaping crew that arrived later that morning to see if they'd noticed Jennifer's car in its usual spot. They didn't recall seeing it, which, based on her known routine, suggested that something happened very early in the morning before people typically showed up for the day. Every detail like this helped them build out their timeline even more. We did mention that they tried to find where her phone last connected by using the pings and the tower that was down close by. So, not crazy helpful. I believe that they probably have more than they're sharing about her phone location or its last known time on or last known ping, but are probably keeping that closer to the investigation. None of these interviews, though, led to what they call a person of interest. None of them led to a suspect. They interviewed a lot of people. They had lead after lead that they explored. They had people of interest for whatever reason that were ruled out and multiple that were never located again. Every avenue they went down seemed to hit the same dead end. They couldn't find any evidence to tie them specifically to what happened to Jennifer. At this point, investigators leaned towards one of two theories: either a crime of opportunity, someone saw Jennifer alone, they seized the moment, they took control quickly, or theory two, a planned abduction. Someone knew Jennifer's routine, they knew when she left, and they were waiting. Both theories have problems. Opportunity crimes leave chaos, but planned crimes leave patterns. This left neither one, but then what else is it? Detective Joel Wright would later say he believed Jennifer made it as far as her car before being abducted. This theory makes sense. If someone confronted her in the stairwell or before she got to her car, they would have heard a scream, probably somebody in the area. If there was a weapon involved, they think maybe it could have been outside of the car, but if she entered that car under threat, that control shifts immediately. So then it's the question of, do we know if the car went somewhere else before it was parked where it was found? And back to that timing issue. What time is it seen parking on the surveillance? How much
Yeah.
time did they have between when she left for work and when it was spotted? There was one worker in the building who was doing construction who was questioned years later, not right away. He had worked in Jennifer's condo shortly before she disappeared. He was more of a maintenance man, but not specifically for the building. Police say that he could resemble the person in the surveillance footage. He denied any involvement. He passed a polygraph, but it still was a theory that police kept on their radar. Just because they pass a polygraph doesn't mean a whole lot. Investigators really do feel that someone with access to the building would know best when Jennifer was alone or when she was coming and going. This still just remains a theory, not an accusation, but it is one that investigators have never fully dismissed. The case stalled. After a year, after 2 years, they're running down every tip they can get, but tips don't come in quite as quick anymore. They don't have other avenues. They don't have a whole lot of forensics, especially in 2006, that they can test. Years after Jennifer disappeared, a tip surfaced that felt real. It was specific. Someone reported that right around the time that Jennifer vanished, they saw rolled up carpet being dumped into a nearby lake. Not tossed casually, not floating after, rolled up. They said it looked weighted and that someone was trying to dispose of it. Immediately, investigators and Jennifer's family were faced with the kind of question that cases are built on. Why would anyone be dumping a rolled up carpet in a lake, especially coincidentally or not, right around the same time a woman disappears? And on its own, that detail might not mean much. People do dump things all the time. Illegal dumping happens constantly. But in Jennifer's case, this tip collided with something investigators already knew. Carpeting work was being done in Jennifer's condo complex the morning she vanished, specifically in a building right near Jennifer's. Suddenly, this seemingly random detail became really unsettling.
Is it close by, like the lake? Was it close by any of the known places that her car was or close by her apartment building?
I don't have exactly which lake it was, but it was in the same vicinity. I couldn't find if it was the same pond that the dog had traced to or not,
Mhm.
but it was close enough to be heavily investigated. Carpet, according to investigators, is a really interesting part of criminal cases. Carpet absorbs blood, traps hair and fibers, holds scent, can't be easily cleaned once it gets that stuff on it. In homicide and abduction cases, carpet is very often cut out, rolled up, removed entirely, and disposed far away. And putting it in a lake is a known tactic because water degrades the biological evidence. You've got sediment that buries objects over time. Visibility, especially in these kinds of lakes, drops really quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
almost immediately, you can't see that it's even in there. And recovery becomes exponentially harder with each passing day. So, when investigators learned that new carpet had been installed in the unit right near Jennifer's and that someone may have dumped old carpet into the lake, the question wasn't, is this suspicious? The question was, is this connected or just another unbearable coincidence? According to investigators, the disposal happened not even a week later, but sometime either that day, the next day, the day after, in a really, really short time frame. And the carpeting work had been that morning. So again, coincidence feels like more. If Jennifer was abducted and somehow incapacitated, they could have taken her to that unit. They could have taken her as she was coming out of her door. From some of the reporting I read, it was the unit right across from hers. Some said it was on the same hallway, but either way, right in there. And so if she was taken into there and they're already getting rid of the carpet, investigators also pointed out that this unit's vacant. There were a lot of vacant units that were just open that you could go into. There were a lot of places, and construction noise hides a lot. You've got these empty units that hide movement. You've got people that know the building really well because they're coming in and out all the time for months. So they could know when other people on that floor are coming and going, not just necessarily Jennifer. It's just a theory, but they did take the tip seriously and her family pushed for action. The nearby lake, which was the one referenced in the tip, which I wish I had the name of, was searched, but it wasn't immediately. It was years later because they didn't get the tip for years.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah. So the lake they searched, they didn't find a carpet. They didn't find remains. They didn't find any identifiable evidence. Investigators didn't really feel like it was a dead end, though. That's what they expected. They expected that it would be broken down if it had been in there in the first place. You also have wildlife. It didn't prove to them that this didn't happen. It just
Yeah.
didn't provide them any more leads or evidence, nothing to go on,
Yeah.
unfortunately. It's another really painful, almost part of this case where if it had been reported sooner, maybe it would have provided something.
Yeah.
It's just, there's so many things about this one that were so close and could have solved it. And really, this month is 20 years since this happened.
Oh, yeah. 20 years this month. We're at
Hmm.
2026 now.
Yeah,
Wow.
end of January. Years passed, momentum slowed. Jennifer's parents, though, are some of the ultimate advocators. By 2018, the case had largely gone quiet for many years. The Orlando Police Department still had it as an open investigation, but they weren't getting leads very often, hardly at all, and little information was publicly emerging. Jennifer's family was frustrated with the pace and the access and began pushing harder for case records. In 2019, her parents sued the Orlando Police Department, the city of Orlando, and the mayor's office for access to investigative documents. They argued that without visibility into what had been done, they couldn't effectively pursue their own avenue of follow up questions, leads. The city settled and handed over approximately 16,000 pages of documents, video, audio recording from the original investigation. I do believe that they had requested it earlier and really pushed and gone back and forth and gotten one page. And it took this full lawsuit and years of pushing to get the full case file, which is really crazy to me.
It's crazy. And if they're not doing anything on it, they're it's been so long.
And
Why? make it so difficult. They don't even have anything that they're trying to go off of. I don't
Right.
know.
Well, right. And that almost makes you feel like, do they not want us to see how the original investigation was handled? Did they miss things, skip things? Or do they really just think that putting out these documents will make it harder to solve in the future?
Yeah, I was wondering with that fiber that you said does have DNA, if that's something maybe they're waiting because they feel like they might be able to get something from that in the future.
So that's when we get to 2025.
Oh, okay.
Okay. With the new case files in hand, her family brought on a team of experts to look into this and help them review all the files, dig into everything. To start that process, her family did have her legally declared dead in 2016. Her father said that it was one of the hardest decisions of his life, but he would never
Yeah.
stop searching. Near the end of 2022, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement formally took over Jennifer's case. This is significant because they have statewide resources, they have advanced forensic capabilities. The cold case unit specifically works on long unresolved disappearances. So it was really good to have this transferred. I mean, and her family's working it as well. Under FDLE, the case was reviewed from the ground up. All evidence was cataloged and reevaluated. They assessed the investigative priorities using new modern tools. According to family statements, they began interviewing a whole new round of individuals with fresh questions. They also interviewed people who had been previously interviewed, sometimes multiple times, to see if there was any memory gap or inconsistencies, anything that could be clarified or followed up on with modern investigative techniques. By 2025, the family said FDLE had interviewed more than 45 to 60 people since taking the case. On May 20th, 2025, which would have been Jennifer's 44th birthday, the FDLE and her family publicly acknowledged a major shift in the investigation. Investigators officially no longer considered the case cold. Instead, they specifically stated that it is active again. The FDLE officials told Jennifer's parents that new DNA evidence from items previously collected but never tested because of what we talked about, technology just wasn't there yet to get what they needed. Even from 2006, 7, 8 to now, even on the things that don't have great quality, what you can get from it, it's come so far since then. Investigators also announced that they were able to narrow down the list of persons of interest significantly. They also said that they were using AI technology to comb through old evidence case files and that grainy surveillance footage of the person parking Jennifer's car, which is huge. The distinction between a cold case to an active case matters legally and operationally. A cold case can sit unstaffed with minimal updates. An active case receives dedicated investigators, forensic resources, and proactive pursuit of leads. So the amount
Gotcha.
being done on it is just hugely different from having it sit as a cold case. For the family, this was the first time in nearly 2 decades that anyone in law enforcement had publicly acknowledged the investigation was moving forward with fresh energy and results. We've got fresh eyes, we've got brand new tools, everything. Now, one of the most jarring revelations in this case is that evidence containing DNA had existed for years, exactly like you pointed out. You're spot on, but it had never been tested. And the things that had been tested had only been tested in the beginning
Yeah.
using older limited methods. In 2006, DNA testing required larger samples, mixed DNA, like we talked about. Anything from her apartment that had multiple things was really
Yeah.
hard to interpret. Partial profiles were often unusable, not even unhelpful, just completely unusable, and many samples were considered inconclusive. Something today could speak volumes that it couldn't back in the day. The FTLE didn't just test the one item that we mentioned. They reopened all the evidence that was saved, everything that could possibly carry trace DNA, which wasn't even testable back then, and ran it again using modern techniques. That testing was ramping up even more in October of 2025. Nothing's been announced yet, but I really hope that they're finding things that they're not sharing with the public and able
Yeah.
to build off of at this point.
Yeah, I hope so too. Because especially you said that they had found a fingerprint and the
That
DNA.
should have
Hopefully,
DNA, yeah.
yeah, hopefully they can put something together and find this
Mhm.
person.
And I think from what I've read, it sounds like they did a good job storing it for future use. It
Preserving stuff.
seems, yep, it seems like it can be tested, thankfully. Jennifer's father, Drew, has been careful with his words. Over the 2 decades, they say that hope has been dangerous because every time they've had hope, it's been followed by disappointment. So it's something that he says he's learned to guard against. But in 2025, for the first time in a long time, he says things feel like they're moving.
Yeah.
He's not expressing excitement or certainty, but acknowledging that investigators are communicating more, evidence is actively being tested, and Jennifer's case is moving forward. You can tell there's a little bit of optimism there. Yeah,
I'm glad that they preserved that DNA or anything that could be tested from DNA back then. I'm
me too.
always so glad. Yes, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right word, that they had that thought to preserve things so
Hmm.
well
The forethought.
back,
Yeah.
just hoping that things will advance, that they can test. Even like we talked about from Nancy's case from how long
I was
ago?
just thinking that. Yep.
And they
Over
preserved
50
it well
years.
enough. Amazing that they had that foresight to preserve things, just hoping one day they can test it. You know,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
it's really cool.
That really does blow me away from the 70s, 80s, even early 90s. I hope that they just save everything they've ever seen from here on out because you never
Yeah.
know. You
You
never
never
know
know
what.
what we're going to get going
Mhm.
forward in 20 more years. What can we do? You
Totally.
know, we don't have any idea. And to have that foresight 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago to save
Mhm.
that just in case is so incredible.
Agreed. Especially how that wasn't even a thought back then. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
The
blows my
DNA
mind.
genetic genealogy testing
Yes.
to find somebody.
Exact phenotyping.
I'm sure
Yeah.
they never had a thought about that 50 years ago, that that could be a
Mhm.
thing. And to save that and have it solve a case 50 years later, it's
Yep.
incredible.
Agreed. And so grateful that even 20 years ago they did that.
Yeah. And gives me a lot of hope for a lot of our cold cases and things where they do have something
Agreed.
saved, that we can find these people.
Yes, especially reserved correctly, like you said, because that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
By July of 2025, local outlets in Orlando were reporting that the investigation had new leads and that the FDLE was zeroing in on a shortened list of possible people of interest. Of course, none were identified. The reporting also emphasized that the focus remained on the idea that Jennifer was likely abducted outside of her condo. I don't believe that any of the investigators believe that she walked away. I just
Yeah.
don't see that. On October 23rd, 2025, Spectrum News and other outlets reported that investigators had found DNA on evidence that had never ever been tested, that they didn't even know had DNA on it, and had sent that off for processing. This included expanded marker testing, which was being used to further refine the list of persons who might have had information about what happened. Jennifer's father at this time said that FDLE had told the family they were down to, quote, just a few people that they believed could provide answers. So
Interesting.
dramatically less than it had ever been. It's worth noting a caution here. In late 2025, Drew explicitly addressed false social media claims that a specific construction worker had been identified by DNA and would be extradited. He called those rumors completely and utterly untrue, emphasizing that while DNA developments are real, they have not yet led to an arrest or public suspect names. Throughout the years, Jennifer's parents have become near constant advocates for the investigation. They pushed for transparency, they fought for records, they embraced modern technology, they have always welcomed media collaboration. Her father, Drew, has spoken cautiously but persistently about the hope that DNA and the narrowed suspects may finally lead to answers. He has described this period as possibly the most active and organized the case has been in many, many years. As of today, Jennifer Kesse has not been found. No one has been charged. The case is active and continuing to move forward. And someone knows what happened. Someone saw something, someone heard something, someone remembers something. Silence, well, that only protects one side. If you have any information, no matter how small, about the disappearance of Jennifer, please contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement because this story, it isn't over.
I really can't wait to see what comes from this case. It sounds really promising for updates that they've given and making the case active again. So I'm really interested to see what happens, and hopefully we can give a case update soon on this
Agreed.
case. I'm hoping that they'll find something with testing and be able to find whoever did this and get some answers soon.
I started researching this case in 2024
Oh, yeah.
because I had heard it in the past. It was interesting, but I really started working on it so that we could cover it around October and seeing all of the updates. I kind of put it further back in when we would record this one just so that I could keep watching for updates. And even this week, I was looking to see if I could find anything to
Yeah.
include it in this episode. But I agree, it feels promising. And I can't imagine how hard it is to wait as long as they've had to wait. But
Yeah.
now I feel like every day would be, is the phone going to ring today? It's
Yeah. And
just,
hopefully it does soon.
I agree.
So it feels like you said really promising.
Hmm. That DNA testing, that's huge. I'm
Yeah.
really, really glad they have things that they can test that
Yeah.
are viable and
Well, and
usable.
hopefully, I was thinking even with that video, with new technology, even if the face is in a shadow, I wonder if they can enhance it to pull that face out of the shadow along with the
Yeah.
DNA technology. That would be really interesting to see too,
Yes.
because video editing and AI technology with videos is so much better now than even a few
Oh,
years ago. I
yes.
feel like that would be a promising thing too, to be able to revisit that video and see what you can pull out of it.
Yes. Agreed. And like I said, we'll link to that and put the other things so you can read more in depth about what they have and what they're looking for on this case
Um,
specifically. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Crime Clueless. We are so grateful for you. If you are looking for the resources we used in this episode or to learn more about Jennifer's case, head over to our blog. You can find it on our website, crimeclueless.com. You can also hear all of our episodes, read about the other cases that we've covered, learn about us if you are so inclined. We would love to connect with you. We're mostly on Instagram at Crime Clueless. Quick favor, if you enjoyed today's episode, a really fast, easy, and free way to help out the show is to give us a rating or a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and grow our community. You can find Crime Clueless on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and all major streaming platforms. And as always, remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murders.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.